So, So, Hare Krishna, before we start the class, let us take the blessings of the beautiful deities of ISKCON Mangaluru, Sri Sri Radha Govind Ji, Sri Sri Radha Govind Ji ki Jai. Okay, so we are starting with chapter 1 today. Okay, so here this is the PPT for chapter 1. So, wherein we'll start with the Kuru family dynasty. Okay, so here, Hare Krishna Mataji, are you able to see the screen?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Mataji. So here you can see the Kuru family, the dynasty, and it starts with King Shantanu. Shantanu had two wives, like one is Ganga Devi and Satyavati. So from Ganga Devi, they both had a son by name Bhishma, and Shantanu with Satyavati, he had two sons. That is, you can see in yellow, Vichitravirya and Chitrangada. And at the same time, Satyavati, before marrying Shantanu, she had a son with Parashara Muni, and she had a son by name Vyasadev. Okay. Um, so next, if you see, Chitrangada, is one of the sons, right? He he didn't get married, and he had no children. He during a war or something, he loses his life. Okay, and the second son, Chitrangada, was the eldest son, and Vichitravirya was the second one, the younger one. So he marries Ambika and Ambalika. Okay, and unfortunately, here also Vichitravirya, he dies because of some disease, and he is left childless. So actually, what Satyavati does, Satyavati, she requests Vyasadev. She says that why don't you bless Ambika and Ambalika with children? So she sends first Ambika to Vyasadev. And Ambika, seeing Vyasadev, he's a Muni, right? We know how rishis are, like they have long beards and they look very scary and fearful. So Ambika, when she went and first met Vyasadev, she was like fearful, and she closes her eyes like this. And then when Vyasadev seeing this reaction, he blesses her with a child who is blind because she closes her eyes, right? So Dhritarashtra is born to Ambika, right? And then Satyavati sends her second daughter-in-law, Ambalika. So Ambalika also same, she has the same reaction. She gets scared seeing Vyasadev. She becomes pale white. So that's why Pandu is born to her, who is white in color. Okay, and then next you can see that Dhritarashtra, he marries Gandhari, right? And then Gandhari has a brother by the name Shakuni, and Dhritarashtra has a total of 100 sons and one daughter by the name Dushala. And the eldest of the 100 sons is the Duryodhana, Dushasana, and the remaining 98 sons. Okay, and here um, Pandu, he has two wives, Kunti and Madri. Okay, and Pandu, they have Pandu and Kunti, they have together, they have four sons, that is Karna. Kunti, we know because of the blessing of sun god, she has Karna. And then through Kunti and Pandu, they have Yudhishthir, Bhima and Arjuna. And through Madri, they have Nakula and Sahadeva. So totally of five sons. And actually, second time, what Satyavati says, right? Because she requests Ambika to go again to Vyasadev to beget a son. So next time, Ambika, she gets scared. So she sends the Dasi. You can see on the rightmost side, right? So she sends the Dasi. So the Dasi, she's so respectful to Vyasadev that Vyasadev blesses her with a son who is Vidura, like who is none other than the incarnation of Yamadev. We all know that, right? Yeah. So from the Dasi, Vidura is born through Vyasadev's blessings. So now Like, and Draupadi is the wife of the Pandavas, and uh, through Arjuna marries one more wife, Subhadra, besides Draupadi, and Subhadra gives birth to Abhimanyu, and Abhimanyu marries Uttara, and they together have a son by the name Parikshit, and Parikshit has a son by the name Janamejaya. And we all know that Subhadra is the sister of Krishna and Balarama. So this is the chart, okay? And in divisions of Bhagavad Gita, we see chapter 1 to 6 is describes about Karma Yoga. The first 6 chapters is about Karma Yoga. 7 to 12 is Bhakti Yoga. Chapter 13 to 18, it talks about Jnana Yoga. Okay, and we may get this doubt why the acharyas in the Bhagavad Gita mention Bhakti Yoga in the middle. Generally, the main important part is either given in the beginning or in the conclusion. Why Bhakti Yoga, which is the gist of Bhagavad Gita, which Krishna mentions is the most important, is mentioned in the middle. So here the first point they are saying is Bhakti is Rahasya. It is very secret. So Bhakti is the essence of all scriptures. So that is one of the reason because Bhakti is a secret. So it is kept in the middle, not in the first or in the end. And next, second point is given Karma and Jnana Yoga are dead without Bhakti, hence surrounded by both. So Bhakti gives life to Karma and Jnana Yoga. So there is no use just doing Karma Yoga without the presence of Krishna, and there is no use of Jnana in which there is no Krishna, right? So that's why this Bhakti is kept in the middle. So Bhakti supports Karma and Jnana Yoga. Okay. So third point, generally, we do not disclose anything which is a secret until we become intimate. Hence, out of respect, bhakti is placed in the middle. Okay, because it is very secretive, so we don't disclose anything which is secret, right? So if it is just kept in the middle, it is easily accessible. If it is kept in the end also, generally it is easily accessible. So in the middle means it's really difficult for us to search, right? So that's why it's kept in the middle. So the fourth point, most important, is kept in the middle. So, example, king traveling with his army is always in the middle. He's protected. See, like if you see a king, he has his army in the front and at the back, and he's in the middle, always protected. Like that, Bhakti Yoga since it's a secret, so it is protected in the front by Karma Yoga and in the back by Jnana Yoga. So that's the reason why Bhakti Yoga is mentioned. The chapters 7 to 12 are mentioned in the middle. And we see Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita as it is, commentary, is based on the following Acharya's books, like from Srila Baladev Vidyabhushana and Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakura, Srila Sridhara Swami, and Sripad Ramanujacharya. So he's taken all his commentaries. See, in any Bhagavad Gita, it is not, we sometimes we may think that if we just read the Bhagavad Gita shloka and translation, that's enough for us to know everything. So that's not the fact. The purport is the important purport, or the commentary is the most important thing that we have to read. Okay, because that commentary varies from acharya to from person to person. So that is the important thing that carries weight actually in any Bhagavad Gita, because the translation generally is the same. The one or two lines of translation that is present in any Bhagavad Gita is the same anywhere you see. From that, you don't understand what exactly it means. But when you read the purport or the commentary that the Acharya, particular Acharya, has written for that Bhagavad Gita, then we understand the true meaning of that translation. So Prabhupada, he didn't give his own translations out of his mind. So we said now when we read the Bhagavad Gita, it has to come from parampara, it has to come from disciplic succession. So Prabhupada, he has taken all the content, the commentary, not just by whimsically whatever comes to his mind. So he's taken from the previous acharyas, his previous acharyas. Like it has come from the disciplic succession. Like he has taken mainly from the commentaries of Srila Baladev Vidyabhushana, our acharyas, our previous acharyas, Srila Viswanath Chakravarti Thakur, Srila Sridhara Swami, and Sripad Ramanujacharya, who belongs to the Sri Sampradaya. Okay. So in Bhagavad Gita, we have a total of 700 verses, out of which Lord Krishna spoke 574, Arjuna spoke 84, Sanjaya spoke 41, Dhritarashtra spoke one shloka, that is the first shloka. So in chapter 1, we have two sections, A and B. So actually today, today being the first day, I thought we'll discuss shlokas 1 to 20. And tomorrow, let's see how it goes. Today, we'll try to finish the first 20 shlokas. So first to the 27, we'll see the introduction, like how the war takes place. Like we see how Dhritarashtra, he talks about the both the armies and how the conch shells are blown, different conch shells, who are the warriors, everything about the war. And 28 to 46, now Arjuna's doubts start after he asks Krishna to put the chariot in between both the armies. Okay. So now this, from 1 to 13, we can see Sanjaya informs King Dhritarashtra of Duryodhana's appraisal of the relative fighting strengths of the Pandava and Kuru armies. Okay, so he compares both. He says, he talks about the Pandavas armies, Pandu's army, and he talks about his army. What are the pros and cons? And then Bhishma and the Kuru army, they blow their conch shells, giving Duryodhana joy. So 14 to 19, we'll see on the other side the blowing of Krishna and Arjuna's transcendental conch shells, as well as blowing of the conch shells of the other members of the Pandava shatters the heart of Duryodhana. So we see that in the shlokas how when Arjuna and Krishna and the others on Pandava's side blow their conch shells, it shatters the heart of Duryodhana and the others on the Kaurava side. Okay, we'll see that. And 20 to 27, we'll see that Arjuna requests Krishna to please take his chariot between the both the armies. Okay, so first we'll start with shloka 1 in detail. Okay, so first shloka is Dhritarashtra Uvacha Dharma Kshetre Kurukshetre Samavetayu Mamaka Pandavaschaiva Kim Akurvata Sanjaya. So, Dhritarashtra Vacha means Dhritarashtra is saying what? Dharma Kshetre Kurukshetre. So, this Kurukshetra, Dharma, is a place of pilgrimage, it's a place of worship, it's a place of, it's a dharmic place. Okay, Kurukshetra. So Samaveta Yuyutsava. Samaveta means they have assembled. Who? The sons of Pandavas and Kauravas. Both have assembled there. How? Yuyutsavaha. Yuyutsava means full of enthusiasm. They're so eager to fight. So Yuyutsavaha. Mamakaha. So Mamakaha means here Dhritarashtra is saying Mamaka. Mama means my sons. And Pandavas and Pandus. Chaiva cha iva kim akurvata Sanjaya. What happened next? He's asking Sanjaya. Okay. So Dhritarashtra is asking Sanjaya. So what happened after both the armies, the Pandavas and Kauravas, assembled on the battlefield of Kurukshetra? See, we may be wondering why Dhritarashtra is asking Sanjaya such a, it may appear like it's a foolish question, right? So what will anybody do if they've come to a battlefield where there are two armies? What will they do? It is expected that they will fight. So what is the use of this question? Why unnecessarily Dhritarashtra is asking this question? It may appear foolish to us. See, like if you, for in the material world, like for example, if you go to a restaurant and you're in front of you, there are 50, I mean, like some 10 food items put in front of you. And obviously, if you go to a restaurant and these items are put in front of you, what will you do? You will eat, right? If somebody comes to you and asks, see, now all these are put in front of you, what will you do? It's a foolish question, right? Obviously, we've come to a restaurant, items are put in front, means we have come to eat, right? So there's no need to ask. So like that, actually, when Dhritarashtra was asking this question to Sanjaya, for us, it might feel that what is this foolish question that Dhritarashtra is asking? See, anybody who comes to a war, obviously they will fight. So, but why is he asking? It's because he was fearful. Okay, so Dhritarashtra was fearful of what? He thought that, I mean, he was fearful of the influence of the holy place, Kurukshetra. See, Kurukshetra is such a holy place; it's a pilgrim place. But even the heavenly demigods, they come there to do their worship. It's such a dharmic place. And one more thing is like the one more reason he was fearful. The main thing he was fearful that his children may lose the battle, right? And he was fearful. Okay, so the one more reason why he was fearful, because Lord Krishna was present on the battlefield of Kurukshetra on the side of Pandavas. Okay, and that is the first thing if you see in the PPT in the slide. And next, they say that they talk about the place of Kurukshetra. It's a dharmic place, so it is a holy place. It's a place of pilgrimage. So the Dhritarashtra was very scared that this place might have an influence on the Kauravas, because Pandavas, they were righteous, they were dharmic. Okay, they were always good in character and everything. So he was worried that the holy place might influence the Pandavas, may favor the Pandavas, so they may be victorious because of the effect of the holy place. Okay, and then the last point is like Bhishma and Drona are saintly people, because they naturally they don't want to fight, they know that. But since Dhritarashtra, I mean Drona and Bhishma, they are eating the grains provided by Duryodhana, so they, out of gratitude, because they are being fed by him, they are fighting. Otherwise they are not actually interested in fighting against the Pandavas. Okay, so these are the four reasons. That's why. And one more thing is like because of the influence of the holy place, see, natural tendency not to fight. Okay, what does this mean? Because of the influence of the holy place, he was worried. Dhritarashtra was worried. Oh, my sons, hopefully they didn't change their mind, because they've come to such a holy place. Hopefully their minds also did not get purified, and they did not think of compromising on the battle. And they have decided, okay, we'll take half of the kingdom. So we'll give half to Pandavas, half to Kaurava, half we'll keep. Hopefully they are not postponing the war, they are not prepared to fight, do the war, and they have just compromised, saying that we'll take 50-50 of the kingdom, and then we'll not fight, like that. So he was worried because of the effect of this place, Kurukshetra, and Krishna himself being present. The battle might not happen, or his children may lose the war. So that was his fear. So that is the reason he asks Sanjaya this question, out of fear. Okay, and what else Prabhupada says? Prabhupada says that here in the shloka, if you see, Dhritarashtra is separating the Pandavas from the Kurus. Okay, actually, they all belong to one family, right? The Kuru family they belong to. But he's separating Pandavas and Kauravas, he's saying separately. Mamaka means my sons and the Pandavas. Actually, they belong to one same family dynasty, but he's separating them. So it shows his ignorance now here. He's so much on the bodily concept of life. Okay, so he's differentiating. He's not treating them as his own sons. Though they are his brother's sons, he's not treating them as one family. Okay, so here the key points we saw is how to understand Srimad Bhagavad Gita. So we saw, right, we have to take Bhakti. Actually, Prabhupada, what is the reason why Prabhupada wrote this Bhagavad Gita as it is? Actually, before Prabhupada wrote this Bhagavad Gita, there were 700 to 800 Bhagavad Gita copies written by many other people. So he read many of the Bhagavad Gitas, but he was not satisfied, because in them their opinions were mentioned. What is the use of a Bhagavad Gita where their opinions are mentioned? It should, see, Bhagavad Gita is a holy book, so it should be about the thoughts of the Lord Krishna or Bhagavan. right? Then that is the Bhagavad Gita. Then what is, if you put your views, it is like one more fiction book, right? Where you are putting your views. What is the view? What is the use of your point of view? You are like one another conditioned soul, right? So when Krishna is putting his point of view, it means that it has come directly from the mouth of Krishna, right? His teachings are different, right? So that's why, how do we, and that's why, that's the reason Prabhupada, because he saw so many changes in each Bhagavad Gita, they were writing about them. Some were jealous of Krishna. They write, they don't mention about Krishna, they just mention about all the material activities. So all these were mentioned, but nothing was like as it has come from the parampara. So that is the main reason why he had to write this Bhagavad Gita and mention it as it is, without no additions or no minus or no plus. It is just as Krishna spoke to Arjuna. Whatever has come in that parampara, in that disciplic succession, that is what Prabhupada gave us. So that is how we have to understand Bhagavad Gita, through our acharyas in that disciplic succession, from Lord Krishna to Brahma, Brahma to Narada, Narada to Vyasa, and so on, like that, till Prabhupada and to his disciples. So that is how we have to understand the Srimad Bhagavad Gita. And we saw why Dhritarashtra was fearing, okay, because of the influence of the holy place, Kurukshetra. And then Dhritarashtra, we saw he distinguished the Pandavas from the Kauravas. Okay, second shloka, Sanjay Uvacha. And we forgot one point, we missed one point. See, you must be wondering how in Shloka 1 that though Sanjaya and Dhritarashtra, they are still in Hastinapur. How is it that they are able to, the war is happening in Kurukshetra, how is it that Sanjaya and Dhritarashtra, they are able to see everything? So we may have this doubt, right? So it is because Sanjaya, who is a disciple of Vyasadev, he has this special bone which Vyasadev gives him, that he can see this Kurukshetra war. Okay, we say like Doordarshan, right? Telepathy, we say, right? Like that. So he can see what is happening, and then that whatever he sees there in Kurukshetra, he is able to convey the same to Dhritarashtra. Okay, so that is how, though they are in Hastinapur, they are able to. Sanjay is able to visualize the war happening in Kurukshetra, and he tells the same to Dhritarashtra. Okay, so now let's see the second shloka. Sanjay Uvacha Drishtva tu Pandavanekam Vyudam Duryodhanastata Acharyam Upasangamya Raja Vachanam Abravit. So Sanjaya said, so this is the translation. Sanjaya said, O king, after looking over the army arranged in military formation by the sons of Pandu, King Duryodhana went to his teacher and spoke the following words. Okay, so now Duryodhana, he goes to Dronacharya after seeing the arrangement, the military arrangement of the Pandavas. Okay, so now here Sanjaya, he tells Dhritarashtra, referring Duryodhana as king, because he is Dhritarashtra as it is, he's feeling despondent, he's feeling hopeless. I mean, he's worried whether their children will be able to win the war. As it is, he's in a very pathetic, sad stage. So to encourage him, he's calling Duryodhana as king here. Okay, so here he says, right, King Duryodhana went to his teacher. He's calling him. He's still calling him king to give hope to the hopeless Dhritarashtra, who is still, he's sad that I mean, like their children may lose the battle and everything like that. So he's just trying to give hope by calling Duryodhana king. So though Duryodhana is king, why he still approaches the commander in chief for advice. So we all may be thinking, oh, Duryodhana is the king. So what is the need for him to approach the commander in chief during the war? This is because he had fear when he saw the military arrangement of the Pandavas. So, because he got fearful, he went and approached the commander-in-chief. So, Mataji, you know who's the commander-in-chief? Hare Krishna?
For whom? For the Pandavas or the Kauravas?
Kauravas, Mataji. Like Duryodhana goes and approaches the commander-in-chief, right? Who is the commander-in-chief?
I think
Yeah.
Dronacharya.
Perfect, perfect. Thank you, Mataji. Good. Yeah. So he approaches Dronacharya. So now let's see in verse 3 what happens. See, out of fear, that is the reason he approaches Duryodhana. He approaches Dronacharya. So third, Pashyetam Panduputranam Acharya Mahatim Chamum Vyudam Drupada Putrena Tava Sishyena Dhimata. So here translation. O my teacher, behold the great army of the sons of Pandu, so expertly arranged by your intelligent disciple, the son of Drupada. Okay, so in verse 3, so we can see here the Duryodhana, he's a very expert politician, he's a very expert diplomat. Okay, so he knows how to handle things properly. He has that political brain, like how we see a politician in our times, right? Like that. It was very diplomatic. Okay, so he goes to Dronacharya and he tells them, see, oh Dronacharya, oh Guru, see how expertly the Pandavas' military arrangement is done. By whom? By your intelligent disciple. He doesn't mention the name as Drishtadyumna. He says the son of Drupada. Okay, so here the commander in chief on the Pandava side is Drishtadyumna. So he is the son of Drupada. So Drupada here, there is a see, by calling Drishtadyumna as son of Drupada, his enemy, he is provoking Drona. Okay, so here we said like Duryodhana is very political, right? So he's calling the opposite general Drishtadyumna not by his name. He's referring him as son of Drupada because he's reminding Dronacharya. There's a story actually, there's a flashback. So Drupada and Dronacharya during their Gurukul days, they were very good friends. So Drupada, he says that, see, after I become king in the future, I will give you half my kingdom. He says that to Dronacharya. And they were very good friends. So after their Gurukul got over, both parted ways. He was a Brahmana, right? So he went to his home, he got married, he had children. And then Drupada also, he became king later and then he started ruling his kingdom. So they were so poor. Actually, Dronacharya, he was so poor. He didn't have any sort of income, and even to feed his children, he didn't even have milk. He didn't have a cow to give milk to his children. What they used, Dronacharya's wife used to do, she used to take some powder and mix it in water and tell their children that this is only milk, and they used to give him that and that as milk. But one day Dronacharya's children, they were playing with everybody, and he happened to drink that milk. They said, right, you drink this milk today. So he drank that milk, and then told his friends, this is not milk. This is not what I drink every day. Then all his friends laughed. This is what is milk. All every day, your mother, she used to give some powder with water, and she used to tell you that that is milk. So he went to his house and then he asked his mother, is this real? Then they feel, oh my God, now see, the Drona's wife says, see, we are so pathetic that we can't even give our child milk. See, you said you had a friend by name Drupada, right? So why don't you go? You said, right, he will help you. So why don't you go and ask him for help? So, okay, then Dronacharya, yeah, you're right. Then he says, okay, I'll go. Then once he goes there, Drupada insults him horribly. He says that those were childhood days. I must have stole you something. Now, where are you and where am I? Go now. I won't give you anything. Go from here. And he insults him and sends him away. So now Dronacharya gets very angry. He gets insulted. And later, Dronacharya, there's a story like how he becomes the Acharya of the Pandavas, but we'll not go into that deep. So now he starts training the Pandavas as their guru, and he teaches them nice archery, everything, nice education he gives them, training, nice training he gives. And then now he tries to take his revenge on Drupada. He says, now go and fight against the kingdom, against Drupada. And then they defeat Drupada. And during this fighting, Drupada is so enchanted by Arjuna's fighting. He gets attracted to Arjuna. He liked Arjuna very much, the way he fought and everything, his heroic deeds and everything, the way he fought. So now, when Drupada was got in front of Dronacharya, Dronacharya says, see, now I have the whole of your kingdom, you are nothing. But still, since I'm good, I will give you half. Now the whole kingdom is mine. I'll give you half kingdom. Go. Take it as a bhiksha. I'm giving you half kingdom. Then Drupada gets very insulted and very angry. Now he does tapasya to get, he does a yagna, wherein he wants a daughter and a son who can kill Dronacharya, and a daughter whom he wanted Arjuna to marry. Okay, so then he performs this yagna, and out of the yagna, one daughter and son come out. The daughter is Draupadi, who marries the Pandavas later, we'll see. And then Drishtadyumna, who was born to kill Dronacharya. So later, even though, because teachers are teachers, right, they don't show any partiality. So later, when Drishtadyumna was sent to Dronacharya to learn, to get education in the Gurukul, he never showed any partiality. He told all the military arts, everything. He gave him all the education. He never distinguished anything like, because he's my enemy. He knew that Drishtadyumna was born to kill him also, but still, being an impartial teacher, he trained him perfectly. So he gives him all the training. So now Duryodhana is reminding him all that. See, he is your enemy's son. Even though you knew you made one mistake. One mistake you did is, by you knew that he was going to kill you, but still you trained him. See, because of your mistake, now he has put the see, such a nice military arrangement he has done now because of your training. But now you don't do one more mistake. You don't show, because I know he's your disciple. You like him, I know. But don't show the partiality that because he's your disciple, you don't get convinced, and but you should fight against him ferociously. You should not show any favor for him. So you should fight properly. He is trying to, I mean, like, he's being political. See, already you made one mistake of training him. Now don't do one more mistake, because he's your disciple. Now you don't show favor to him. Now you fight properly. That's what he's trying to say. And also in this purport, Prabhupada also says one more point. Even the Pandavas were also trained by Dronacharya, right? So he's telling here, see, because Pandavas, especially Arjuna, is your favorite, so don't show partiality to them. Okay, you should not be lenient to them. You should nicely fight. Okay, full ferociously, you should nicely fight. You should not think, oh, they are my favorite disciples. How can I kill them and be lenient? No, you have to be ferocious and you have to kill all of them. That's what he's trying to be telling. He's trying to tell. So we saw, right, the Duryodhana, he's how he talks like an expert politician diplomat, and Duryodhana is referring to Drishtadyumna as son of Drupada. Why? And we saw that. Okay, so now we saw Dhritarashtra distinguished Pandavas from the Kurus. Okay, so now here we are seeing Akshohini. So if you see, you may be wondering why Duryodhana, he was fearful seeing the military arrangement of the Pandavas, because actually the Pandavas had only 7 Akshohini of Sena, while the Kauravas had, if you see in this picture slide, they had 11 Akshohini. See, 1 Akshohini means, you can see, right? It is 21,870 chariots, 21,870 elephants, 65,610 horses, and 1,09,350 foot soldiers. So many. So 1 Akshohini contains of all these. And like that, they had 11 Akshohini Kauravas, but still they were fearful. Why, actually, he was wondering how Pandavas were in the forest all these years, and Duryodhana didn't expect that he would get even 7 Akshohini, because what Duryodhana was doing all this while, right, when the Pandavas were in the forest, he was gathering all the army. He knew that Pandavas would come after 12 years, they would come to regain their kingdom, and he would not be ready to give, and the war would have to happen. So, preparing that in mind, he was not just sitting calmly in the palace, in the kingdom at Hastinapur. He was using all his diplomacy and political things, and he was going to all the kings, and he was bringing them in favor so that to fight against the Pandavas when they come back. So he was doing that. So he was shocked actually. Okay, these Pandavas, they were in the forest, but still, how did they manage to get 7 Akshohini? Me, I was there in Hastinapur, and I was practically talking to all the kings. I could gather only 11. They being in the forest, and within a short span, how they were able to gather 7 Akshohini. He was surprised actually. So that is what created a fear in him. And the way the military arrangement was also done of that 7 Akshohini, he was very surprised. That caused a lot of fear in him. How seven Akshohini they could get. Okay. And these all details you can read. Who are the commander in chief, Maharathis, Atirathis, all these we can read. Okay. Now 4 to 6 here. So in Shloka 4, if we see in Bhagavad Gita, they're saying here in this army. Now Duryodhana is describing Pandava's side. See, opposing army. He's describing everything. Who all are present, who are the great warriors, who are the Maharathis, who are there. He's explaining. So in Shloka 4, we can see in the translation, here in this army are many heroic bowmen, equal in fighting to Bhima and Arjuna, great fighters like Yuyudhana, Virata, and Drupada. So here, Duryodhana is saying, see, they are great fighters who are in equal strength to Bhima and Arjuna. Who are they? Yuyudhana, Virata, and Drupada. So Duryodhana, he knows the strength of Bhima and Arjuna. They're very powerful. He knows that. So he's saying that not only Bhima and Arjuna, like on their same similar strength, there are many. Some he names like Yuyodhana, Virata, and Drupada. In Shloka 4, he says that. In 5, he says, they are also, who else is there? He's saying, powerful fighters like Drishtaketu, Chekitana, Kashiraja, Purujit, Kuntiboja, and Saibya. So he's telling that even these people are very great, heroic people who can fight ferociously. And then in Shloka 6, he's saying they are mighty Yudhamanyu, the very powerful Uttamauja. Who is Uttamauja? He is the son of Subhadra. Subhadra, we know, is the sister of Krishna and Balram, right? Okay, and the wife of Arjuna. So, Uttamauja, the son of Subhadra, and the sons of Draupadi. So, all these warriors are great chariot fighters. See, all these four he mentioned, right, are the Maharathis. Okay, so we can see that all Arjuna, Bhima, or whoever are there on the side of the Pandavas, they are actually fighting for rights. They are actually not looking for something material. They just don't want to just for material sake or for property sake. They are not fighting. It's actually called a dharma yuddha. They are fighting for their rights. They are kshatriyas, right? They are not brahmanas. If they were Brahmanas, they would go into the forest and beg. They do bhikshatana, right? Brahmanas would do bhikshatana. But Kshatriyas, they can never beg, right? Kshatriyas, they rule, and they have to rule. They need kingdom for that. Okay? So they actually are fighting for the rights, because when during the war, when they go after the Vanavas over, they go back, they ask to give the kingdom back. He says, no, I won't give you anything. Then Krishna goes as a peace treaty, and he says that at least give them give them 5 villages for the 5 Pandavas. They will at least rule one village. don't give the whole kingdom, you keep the whole kingdom, just give them 5 villages. He says, I won't even give the size of a needle. That much also I won't give, he says. So actually, the reason the war had to happen was for a dharmic purpose, because they were, as Kshatriyas, they were rulers. So they are fighting for their rights. It's not for some material gain they are fighting. Okay, so that's why they're on their side, because they were dharmic, they were very strong, because they're not cheating or something like the Kauravas, right? So that is what is said in 4 to 6. Now let's go to 7th shloka in the translation. So, but now what is he saying? Now we saw he describes the army of the Pandavas. Now 7 to 9, he describes his army now. Okay, so he says, but for your information, O best of the Brahmanas, let me tell you about the captains who are especially qualified to lead my military force. So, actually, when he's talking about this, Duryodhana is in a dilemma actually. Whether, like, the main people on Duryodhana's army are Drona and Bhishmacharya, right? So he's wondering, like, oh, these two are great. Whom should I talk to first? And Bhishma or Drona? So then he says in the next shloka, Bhavan. So Bhavan means you. So he's still talking to, first he talks to Dronacharya. Okay, so what does he say in the 8th shloka? There are personalities like you, Bhishma, Karna, Kripa, Ashwatthama, Vikarna, and the son of Somadatta called Bhurishrava, who are always victorious in battle. So he is mentioning all these names. So why Bhavan? Bhavan means Dronacharya. So he's very political, na Duryodhana. So he thinks, okay, now Bhishma Pita will think that, oh, Drona is a Brahmana, he's not a Kshatriya. So even if I talk to him first, he won't mind. He's being very political. So let me just talk to first the Dronacharya only, because Bhishma is a Kshatriya. So I'm anyway giving his importance. So Dronacharya being a Brahmana, he won't mind. He's not a Kshatriya, right? So he won't mind if I first tell Dronacharya's name. So that's why he says, we have, so you yourself are there, Bhishma is there, Karna is there, Kripacharya, Ashwatthama. Ashwatthama is the son of Dronacharya, right? Vikarna, as maybe all of you know, he is the brother of Duryodhana, right? And why, even though Vikarna is not a great warrior, his name is mentioned here is because when what is this Draupadi Vastraparna was happening, Vikarna was the only person who opposed this Vastraparan. He told Duryodhana, what you're doing is wrong. Stop this, don't do it. Okay, so he was in favor of the Pandavas. He said, no, don't do this, it is bad. Don't insult Draupadi like this. So he's the only person who went against this. So that is why he's worried. Now, Vikarna, he may support the Pandavas in fighting. So that is why he mentions Vikarna's name here. Though he's not a great warrior, fighter, he is mentioning Vikarna's name particularly so that he gets that importance, so that he gets the this thing that oh, now he has to fight. He is also one of the great fighters the Duryodhana is considering, and then so to give encouragement to him so that he will fight against the Pandavas. So that's why he's mentioning Vikarna, though he's not a great warrior. So now in Shloka 9, what is he saying? There are many other heroes who are prepared to lay down their lives for my sake. All of them are well equipped with different kinds of weapons and are all experienced in military science. So, in the 9th shloka, it is already there. He's saying that Duryodhana himself is already saying, oh, all these people who he's saying, like people like Jayadratha, Kritavarma, Shalya, and many others, they are all ready to lay their lives. They're ready to die for me. So he's preparing their deathbed before itself. Mentally, he's saying they're already decided that they're going to die. Okay, so Duryodhana is mentally prepared that all are going to die. So and actually, if you see all these people on the Kaurava side, they are fighting for material cause. See, because Dhritarashtra, he was not able to be the king because he was blind. Now he at least wants Duryodhana to become the king. So they're fighting for material cause. It's not a dharmic cause. Okay. If it was a dharmic cause, they would have divided the kingdom among the family members half and half. They would have taken it. But they are fighting for a material cause. They want that comfort. They want that kingdom. Okay, so that's why they are weak. They're fighting for a material cause. That's why they are weak. And we can see that most of them are also actually, even though they are on Duryodhana's side, they are favoring the Pandavas only. But helplessly, they are fighting for Duryodhana. Okay, so this is 7 to 9. So now let's see the 10th shloka. Then 10th shloka. अपर्याप्तं तद् अस्माकं बलं भीष्माभिरक्षितं पर्याप्तं तु इदम् एतेषां बलं भीमाभिरक्षितं. So translation. Now our strength is immeasurable and we are perfectly protected by grandfather Bhishma, whereas the strength of the Pandavas, carefully protected by Bhishma, is limited. So now in this 10th shloka, the word aparyaptam is mentioned by Duryodhana. So now Duryodhana is describing the strength of his army. Okay, though I mean, like, he's very political. Though he is fearful of the Pandavas' army, he is not showing it out because he's being very political. He knows how to handle things very well. But indirectly, he's trying to show that, nevertheless, even I have great warriors on my side. So he's comparing now. See, he's showing a comparison between the Pandavas and the Kauravas now, if you can see. So that's why this word aparyaptam. Aparyaptam means immeasurable. So protected. So he's saying that on our side we have Bhishma. He is like immeasurable. Nobody can defeat him. He is somewhere. He's like beyond anybody. Bhishma we have. So, but who Pandavas? They have only Bhima. Where compared to Bhishma, he is nowhere. That's what Duryodhana was thinking. Where is Bhima in front of Bhishma? No comparison. He is very happy. Oh, Bhishma will definitely, we have Bhishma, so definitely now we'll win. Okay. Actually, why he is comparing to Bhima? Because Duryodhana is envious of Bhima. He knows that only Bhima is the person who is capable of killing him or defeating him in war. He knows that, he's confident. That's why he's telling, oh, in front of Bhishma, Bhima is nothing. Like that. Okay. So now let's see 11 to 12. Now, in 11 to 11th and 12th shlokas, we see that Duryodhana, he praises all the great warriors, but the remaining people will feel bad, right? Oh, we are of no use or what? He's praising everybody, but he's not praising us. Now, we'll see in these shlokas how politically he praises them also, how he tells them their responsibility also. So, in 11, we see all of you must now give full support to grandfather Bhishma as you stand at your respective strategic points of entrance into the phalanx of the army. See, now in 11th shloka, we can see Duryodhana is being diplomatic. He thinks, see, others in the army may feel bad. So what is he? He's saying that, see, you all are no less important. So now you know that Bhishma Pita is old. He's our grandfather. He's very old now, and he needs support and protection from all of you. So what all of you must do? You must all be in different directions to support Bhishma Pitamaha. So your help is also very much needed, right? You should all protect Bhishma, right? That, and he explains the where and where they all have to be and everything. Okay, and Duryodhana is confident of the support, and here Prabhupada says in the purport, Duryodhana is confident of the support from Bhishma and Dronacharya. Why? Why is he confident that Bhishma and Dronacharya will fight for him against the Pandavas? Because they supported him during the gambling match. Actually, even during the gambling, during this, what is Vastrapaharna, they don't say anything in front of the. See, actually, because the Pandavas lost the gambling match, and they put Draupadi as this thing, right? So when Draupadi was insulted, like she was brought in front of everybody, she was trying to be stroke, Dronacharya and Bhishma, they didn't speak, supporting Duryodhana. So now he knows that even in the war here now, he's confident. Why? Because they supported him during the Draupadi Vastrapaharan without speaking any word. So obviously now also they will support me because they supported me then. Obviously they'll support me now also. So he is confident now. Okay, yeah, definitely Bhishma and Dronacharya, they will fight nicely against the Pandavas. Okay. And now let's see the 12th shloka. Then Bhishma, the great valiant grandsire of the Kuru dynasty, the grandfather of the fighters, blew his conch shell very loudly, making a sound like the roar of a lion, giving Duryodhana joy. So now, in shloka 12, see, Bhishma is very compassionate to Duryodhana. Okay, so he understands that he is being very political. He knows because Bhishma is like he's the grandfather of Duryodhana, so he knows the mentality of Duryodhana. He can make out that he's fearing inside, but he's trying to cover up. He knows that Bhishma. Okay, so to give joy to Duryodhana, what he does, he blows the conch shell very loudly, saying that he's giving him confidence. Okay, now I'm blowing the conch shell. See, I will fight for you. He's giving him that confidence. He's giving him that happiness. Okay, now I will fight for you. Don't worry. So he wants to give happiness to Duryodhana. So he blows the conch shell very loudly. Now, Duryodhana's defeat. Now, but actually, why Bhishma was internally blowing the conch shell? He knows. He knows that for sure you will die in this. You will not be able to win this battle. Why? Because on the other side, Krishna is there. Okay, so he knows that Duryodhana will be defeated because Krishna is there on the other side. But even then, he knows that even though Bhishma knows he will also die, he knows that. But as a matter of his duty, because as he has come to fight, so he is doing his duty. He says that I will not compromise. As my duty as a warrior, I will do my duty of fighting. I will fight. I will not compromise. So he does his duty of fighting. And Shloka 14, translation. On the other side, both Lord Krishna and Arjuna, stationed on a great chariot drawn by white horses, sounded their transcendental conch shells. So now in Shloka um, oh, sorry. Okay, 13th, I'm sorry, I forgot to read the 13th shloka. So 13th one is like our translation. After that, the conch shells, drums, bugles, trumpets, and horns were all suddenly sounded, and combined sound was tumultuous. So now, when the war, we must have seen, like not literally, but at least we must have seen in the serials of Mahabharata, like they show when the war starts, right? All these trumpets, bugles, once the conch shells are blown, all these are blown. So like that, so all the people on Kauravas, they do all these conch shells, drums, bugles, and everything. Okay. So now in 14, shloka number 14, let's see what it says. On the other side, both Lord Krishna and Arjuna, stationed on a great chariot drawn by white horses, sounded their transcendental conch shells. So now we are talking about the blowing of the conch shells. Till now we talked about the blowing of the conch shells on Kaurava's side. Now we are talking about Krishna and Arjuna blowing their transcendental conch shell. Okay, so Krishna and Arjuna, their conch shell is described as transcendental. So these are the symbols of victory. So before itself, it is telling there are some signs where victory will be there. So we'll see now from Shloka 14, like where some symbols of victory we can see, where their Pandavas are sure to win. What are the symbols? So first symbol is Krishna and Arjuna's conch shell is termed as transcendental. Okay, so that is one thing. They blew their conch shells. Okay, and Madhava, Krishna is termed as Madhava. Why? And the other reason why victory is certain is Krishna is present along with them. So wherever Krishna is present, the goddess of fortune is present, right? So goddess of fortune is present means what? All opulence is present. So both victory and opulence are there on the side of the Pandavas, right? And one more thing is why victory is certain. The chariot on which they were sitting, that was given, that was donated by Agnidev. And that chariot is so powerful that it is capable of conquering all the three worlds. So it is such a powerful chariot. Okay, so we could see some symbols of victory, right, for the Pandavas in Shloka 14. Now, in Shloka 15 to 18, we'll see how everybody, all from the Pandavas, how they blow all their conch shells. Krishna, Arjuna, Bhima, Nakula, Sahadeva, and all the people on the Pandavas, how they blow their conch shells. So let's see that. So now in Shloka number 15, we'll see Lord Krishna blew his conch shell called Panchajanya. Arjuna blew his the Devadatta. Bhima, the voracious eater and performer of Herculean tasks, blew his terrific conch shell called Poundra. So now Krishna blew his conch shell Panchajanya, Arjuna, Devadatta, Bhima, Poundra, and Yudhishthira is the Ananta Vijaya. Okay, this is told in 15. Here, Vrukodara means who is a voracious eater. They're talking about Bhima. See, Bhima, he eats so much. Like when Kunti Maharani, she cooks, how she distributes the food is half of the food that she cooks, she gives it to Bhima. And remaining half, they all distribute among themselves. That is how much Bhima eats. But he not only eats, but he performs Herculean tasks also. The way he eats, the tasks he performs are also very great, like that. Okay. So now let's see in 16 to 18, they're telling in the translation, King Yudhishthira, the son of Kunti, blew his conch shell, that is Ananta Vijaya. Okay, so Yudhishthira's conch shell is Ananta Vijaya, and Nakula, Sughosha, and Sahadeva, Manipushpaka. Okay, so they blew their conch shells. And who else blew their conch shells? The great archer, the king of Kashi, the great fighter Shikhandi. Okay, Drishtadyumna, Virata, the unconquerable Satyaki, Drupada, the sons of Draupadi, and the others. O king, such as the mighty armed son of Subhadra. So all blew their respective conch shells. So now, so everybody, Krishna, Arjuna, every Pandavas, and who are all there on the Pandava side, they blew their conch shells. So here Krishna is called Hrishikesha. So Hrishikesha means one who is the master of the senses. He controls our senses. So he, depending on our karma, whatever we desire, he controls our senses. Right? Depending on a karma, like whether we are eligible for that or not, depending on that, he controls our senses. Okay, so that's why he's called Rishikesha. Now here he's controlling the senses of Arjuna. Okay, so here we see the different names of Krishna, Arjuna, and Bhima. So you can just refer to these. All are very easily understandable. If you can just read, you will understand them. Okay. Okay. So 19th shloka we'll see. The translation says, the blowing of these different conch shells became uproarious, vibrating both in the sky and on the earth. It shattered the hearts of the sons of Dhritarashtra. Okay, so now when the Pandavas, they were blowing their conch shells, how was the blowing to the Kauravas? The blowing became uproarious. బౌల్లో వేడి చేసుకో అండ్ గ్రౌండ్ నట్స్ కూడా కొంచెం నాకు కొంచెం ఉంటుంది ఓకే నువ్వు హాఫ్ ఆఫ్ తిని నేను వస్తున్నా అయిపోయింది ఐమ్ సారీ actually my daughter, she's come from school, she's asking what's there for snacks. I'm so sorry. Okay, so in 19th we are seeing that, so when the Pandavas together they blew their conch shells, it was so uproarious that it shattered the hearts of Duryodhana, and the people on the side of Duryodhana, all the Kauravas. Okay, when they blew, but when we don't see that when the Kauravas blew the conch shells, they didn't have any heart. The Pandavas were not fearful, or their hearts didn't shatter. Why? Because they had full confidence in Lord Krishna. So Krishna was present with them. So anyone who takes shelter of Lord, they have nothing to fear. He is the supreme personality of Godhead, right? So everything happens by his will. So what is there to fear when he is there? So that's why when the Kauravas blew their conch shells, nothing, no fear Pandavas had, because they had Krishna with them. But when Pandavas blew their conch shell, I mean, the whole of the Pandavas blew their conch shells, the hearts of the shadow, they were fearful. All the Kauravas, they were fearful. So this is a sign, see, showing that when the Kauravas' hearts were shattered due to fear, it means obviously they're very scared now. It shows a sign of defeat. Okay, so we'll see the 20th shloka and the last shloka for today's class. And the translation is said, at that time, Arjuna, the son of Pandu, seated in the chariot, bearing the flag marked with Hanuman, took his bow and prepared to shoot his arrows. O king, after looking at the sons of Dhritarashtra drawn in military array, Arjuna then spoke to Lord Krishna these words. So, one more symbol of victory they are showing for the Pandavas. What is that? Arjuna's flag, right? So, Arjuna's flag on the chariot. So, there was a symbol of Hanuman, who is a devotee of Lord Rama. So that symbol of Hanuman, it shows sign of victory. Why? Because when Hanuman was present in the war between Rama and Ravana, they won the battle because Hanuman cooperated in the fight. So now Hanuman is present and Lord Rama and Lord Krishna is the same, right? So because both were present, obviously there is victory for the Pandavas now. So that is one more sign of victory. And also, one more reason, as we all know, that Lord Krishna is personally present as Rishikesha and he is directing the senses of Arjuna. So, definitely, therefore, Arjuna's victory is assured. So, now we'll see in the next slide all the signs of victory for the Pandavas. We'll just recap once again. Okay, so Krishna is first personally is present. He's the supreme personality of God Himself. So because of which victory is guaranteed. Next, we said like goddess of fortune. Obviously, wherever Krishna is present, the wife is always present with the husband. So goddess of fortune is present. So the victory and opulence both are present. So this is one more sign of victory. And the place, venue, Kurukshetra being a holy place would be in favor of the Pandavas because the Pandavas were virtuous, they were dharmic, they were good people. So obviously the holy place would have effect on them. So they would definitely win. And one more sign of victory is Hanumanji. So Hanumanji, he helped the Lord Rama in the battle between Ravana, between the fight between Lord Rama and Ravana. So now the Hanuman and Krishna are present personally. So that is one more sign of victory. And the symbol of Vishnu. So that conch shell which they blew, Krishna blew, right? So the conch shell is a symbol of victory. Okay. And then transcendental conch shells. Now Krishna and Arjuna had transcendental conch shells, which are Divya. They're called Divya. So when they blew the conch shells, it shattered the hearts, right? So, and Bhishma's conch shell to pacify Duryodhana. And this is one more sign of defeat. So actually when Bhishma, he blew the conch shell, that is one more sign of defeat, right? He knows that they're going to die. That's why, but still, to encourage Duryodhana, he blows the conch shell. And Agnideva's chariot, we saw that the chariot was donated to Arjuna, and it was such a powerful chariot that it is capable of conquering in all directions. And ninth is like the shattering of the hearts. This also clearly shows that they were fearful. When the Pandavas, Krishna and the Pandavas, they blew the conch shell, it was so fearful. It shattered the hearts of the Kauravas, and they were so fearful, right? So that shows the Pandavas' victory. Okay, so today we'll just complete till here. Please let me know if you